Welcome to a meeting of your Planning Commission, the official local planning agency for the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and unincorporated Hillsborough County. The Planning Commission provides innovative leadership and long-range vision that contributes to the creation of a thriving, prosperous community that offers opportunity, fairness, and choice in how we live, move, learn, work, and play. For more information about the Planning Commission, please call 813-272-5940. Follow us on social media or visit our website at planhillsborough.org.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the August 12th, 2019 public hearing of the Planning Commission on Tampa Comprehensive Plan Amendments. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation are encouraged. If you will, please sign to register at the rear of the room and turn off any devices that may be a distraction. If you wish to address the Commission on a specific amendment, we ask that you please complete the appropriate public comment sign-in sheet at the back of the room. When addressing the Commission, please begin by stating your name, address, and speak directly into the microphone. For those of you who are not familiar with our process, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chairman. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will then ask questions. Public comment will be closed. Then upon a motion, second, and discussion, a vote will be taken. Roll call, please.
All right. Powell? Here. Dix? Here. Green? Joseph? Here. Kress?
Here.
Marino?
Here.
Willman?
Here.
Thrower?
Here.
Wilds? Dickerson?
Here.
Rodriguez?
Here.
Dowdy? You have quorum.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to Tampa Comprehensive Plan Amendment 19-02, text amendment.
Good evening, Jennifer Moen with your Planning Commission staff. I'm going to present on 1902. I apologize, the mic wasn't turned on. This was publicly initiated by the City of Tampa staff. We coordinated together on it. It is amending the existing locational criteria language for some clarity. We're also revising a few definitions. And this will really just help us clarify the existing process. The locational criteria allows consideration of limited neighborhood-serving non-residential uses within those residential future land use designations. It seeks to focus those neighborhood-serving uses in specific corridors and nodes. It is consistent with several comprehensive plan policies. It seeks to have that protection of neighborhoods by limiting the number of non-residential uses within single-family areas. So this is going to protect those neighborhoods by limiting where non-residential uses can be placed. As I said earlier, we're focusing on those corridors and the nodes. It'll also continue to provide that complementary mix of uses for the neighborhoods while remaining compatible and sensitive and consistent with these comprehensive plan policies, because our comprehensive plan does seek to provide that mix, but it needs to remain compatible and sensitive to the neighborhood, and that is exactly what the locational criteria seeks to do. And with that, we found it consistent. Unfortunately, I really don't think I have a City of Tampa staff member here this time, unless someone snuck in. But I can certainly answer any questions that you may have on this.
Okay. Any questions for commissioners? Actually, any public comment first? Public comment? Okay, no public comment. Any questions from commissioners on this item? Okay. Someone like to make a motion?
I move that we find the proposed text change for City of Tampa CPA 1902 consistent with the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan and forward this recommendation to Tampa City Council.
Okay. We've got a motion by Commissioner Marino, a second by Commissioner Powell. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We will move on to the next one, Tampa Comprehensive Plan Amendment 19-07.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. David Hay with your Comprehensive Planning and Policy Review Team. Your next item consists of, they're all part of a series of updates to the city's future land use map. You should be seeing additional parks in upcoming plan amendment cycles over the next months and potentially a few years. There's a lot of parks to update. Here we have the 5 locations that we're going to look at this evening. Site A is Corona Park. Site B is Highland Pines Park. Site C is Lincoln Gardens over in West Shore. Site D is Oak Park. And then Site E is part of the Sulphur Springs Park. A little background concerning all of these 5 amendments. This process was initiated by Tampa City Council. The council directed the Planning Commission staff in cooperation with City of Tampa to begin to recognize all city-owned parks on the future land use map. Each of the 5 parks up for consideration tonight are listed on the city's dedicated park list, which is located in Chapter 16, Section 91 in the city's Code of Ordinances. Tonight, all 5 amendments would recognize existing city parks with the recreational open space, future land use category. This category is designed to recognize lands either publicly or privately owned dedicated for recreational opportunities. As we typically do with all amendments, we send all of these 5 amendments to our partner reviewing agencies, and none of them raised any concerns with any of the 5 proposed requests. Since all of these requests are for the recreational open space future land use category and are publicly owned facilities, staff found that the following policies applied to all 5 of the amendments. The comprehensive plan is supportive of providing recreational opportunities and open space options to surrounding neighborhoods. Staff found all 5 requests consistent with a number of policies related to those recreational opportunities for city residents. It should also be noted that when a park is recognized on the future land use map, it does provide for more accurate data that we can, when we calculate out future potentials, that the park is recognized through that dedication of the open space category. So the first site for your consideration is Site A. It's Corona Park. It's located within the South Tampa Planning District, and more specifically the Palma Sia neighborhood. Here we have an aerial. You can see the subject site in the center. This is Corona Street running east-west, South Sterling Avenue running north-south, and then you've got South Dale Mabry Highway further to the west. You could see the commercial development around the South Dale Mabry corridor, and then immediately off that corridor, it transitions into single-family detached residential. Here we'll take some look at some photos of the subject site. Here we're looking southeast toward Corona Park on the north side from Corona Street. Now we're looking south down South Sterling Avenue from the intersection of West Corona Street, and Corona Park is over here on the west side, the right or the west side of the photo. And here we're looking west down West Corona Street. Corona Park is out of frame to the left or south, so this is the development pattern on the north side of the park. Here we have the currently adopted future land use map. You can see it has 2 future land use designations. The majority of the parcel is designated this residential 10, and then there's a small western portion that is designated this community mixed use 35, represented by the pink. And if this plan amendment does finally get approved, it would go to that green representing the recreational open space future land use category. The impacts with this proposed change, you can see currently the site could be considered for 10 dwelling units or a maximum of 10,059 square feet. Under that recreation open space, that density intensity would be removed, and the rec open space would require that all future uses would be limited to recreational uses. So based on that, Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed map amendment 1907A be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan. Thank you. At least for the first one.
Thank you. Okay, there's no one from the public hearing. Yep. Any public comment on this item? Okay, no public comment. Any questions from commissioners? Actually, would someone, let me see if someone would like to make a motion first, and then we can discuss. Well, actually, go ahead. I'm sorry.
David, can you help me understand why we're not just doing a wholesale approval of all city parks?
We've discussed that with the Parks Department. There's a staffing issue with processing all of these all at once. So the Parks Department, because they're also at the city, are looking into make sure that they are on the dedicated park list, that there's no other issues dealing with a particular park, like a deed restriction or something, that may hinder a rec open space category. So it's
so
two.
only 5?
5 this round. There's a lot and there'll be 7 next round, and then
It just seems like a lot of time for something that seems procedural to me. So I don't know if there's a way to streamline the process, but
I mean, each one needs to be voted separately due to
Okay.
if there was an issue with one individual park, it would cause a cascading effect if they were all tied together, and that's how staff viewed it. And to keep the process clear and concise, so the record is clear, 20 years down the road, that each one would have an amendment and a
but
resolution.
you have to go and spend your time and get photos of every single city park and, I mean, it's gonna take hours, right, to go through all of these. But,
It's-
I mean, I'm just throwing it out there as it just seems like there would be a faster way, but enjoy your park tour.
I get to get out of the office occasionally. We're going to share it, too. It's going to be spread amongst all of us. So.
Any other questions? Someone like to make the motion?
I make a motion that we find the proposed land use designation change for City of Tampa TA CPA 1907 Site A from R10 to CMU 30, and CMU 35 to recreation open space, consistent with the Imagine 2040 comp plan, and for this recommendation to City Council.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Willman, second by Commissioner Marino. Any further discussion before we vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one up is 1907B. This is a portion of Highland Pines Park. It's within the Central Tampa Planning District, and more specifically, the Highland Pines neighborhood. Here we have an aerial of the subject site. This is a portion of the entire park. This is Highland Pines Park. You could see to the north, there's single-family detached residential. And then immediately to the west and south, there are heavy commercial and light industrial uses. This is the Hart Maintenance Facility. You've also got a school to the south. And then, of course, East Columbus Avenue and the Interstate 4, all that interchange kind of to the south east. Here we're looking south toward the subject site from the intersection of East 21st Avenue and Dodge Street. That's the residential street to the north. Here we're now looking, the subject site's behind us. Now we're looking into the residential neighborhood just to the north of the subject site. Here we are looking east down East 21st Avenue. Highland Pines Park is located to the right over here. And then here we're looking south from East 21st Avenue. The subject site is located to the left or east of the structure, so over here. Here we have the currently adopted future land use map. You could see it's this portion is light industrial. It's represented by the gray. It's light industrial to the west and south. The schools in the community commercial 35 future land use category. A majority of the park is already recreation open space, represented by the green, and then you've got the residential 10 to the north. Here we have the park site if it is ultimately approved. It's now in that recreation open space category. Again, currently the site, since it is light industrial, residential cannot be considered on the site, though a maximum of 157,468 square feet of non-residential uses could be considered. Again, that would all go away, and future uses would need to be recreational in nature, excuse me. So based on that, Planning Commission staff recommends that TACPA 1907B be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment on this item? Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Kress?
Oh, different question.
Okay.
Well, I think you said this is just part of a bigger park, and why not the whole park?
The whole, a portion of the park, the majority of the park is already rec open space. They've acquired additional property. So this is the whole park, but you could see our future land use map did not recognize the portion that was acquired. Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Marina?
I move that we find the proposed land use designation for City of Tampa, TACPA 1907, Site B from light industrial or recreational open space consistent with the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan. Forward this recommendation to Tampa City Council.
Okay, got a motion by Commissioner Marina, second by Commissioner Joseph. Any further discussion before we vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? It passes unanimously.
Okay, on to the next one. TACPA 1907C, this is Lincoln Gardens Park. It's in the West Shore Planning District, and more specifically, the Carver City Lincoln Gardens neighborhood. Here we have an aerial of the subject site. You can see it's outlined in red here. The main access into the park is from West Palmetto Street. Leads into it's basically a dead end. To the north, there is this church, and then some heavy commercial type office uses. There's an apartment community directly to the west of the subject site. That's with the red roof there. This is Lois, Boy Scout, and then you also see International Plaza. The park serves primarily this portion of Carver City Lincoln Gardens. This is predominantly single-family detached in here. And then you do have commercial uses also to the south. This is the Home Depot at Spruce and Dale Mabry. Here, look at some photos of the subject site. We're looking southwest toward Lincoln Gardens Park from the end of West Palmetto Street. Here now we're looking west from West Palmetto Street. The subject site is over here on the left or south. Those are those apartments that were adjacent to the site on the west side. And then this is the church. Looking south across the subject site toward West Spruce Street, that's beyond those commercial buildings to the south. And now we're in the center of Lincoln Gardens Park. You could see it's rung by, this is again that apartment community to the west. Here we have the currently adopted future land use map. The subject site and the portions to the east are all residential 10, represented by that tan color. It is surrounded by regional mixed use 100. That's that most intensive category outside of downtown. Even though this shows as a right-of-way, it's unimproved, so this does not connect. I think there's a drainage ditch in there. Here we have the subject site if it is approved with that recreation open space. Currently, the site can be considered for 25 dwelling units or a maximum of 38,115 square feet of non-residential uses. That would go away, and all future uses would need to be recreation-oriented. So based on that, Planning Commission staff finds 1907C consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment on this item? Any questions from commissioners? Someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Joseph?
I'll make the motion that we find City of Tampa TACPA 1907 Site C consistent and forward the recommendation on to the City of Tampa.
Okay, we got a second? Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Joseph, second by Commissioner Powell. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
All right.
Move on to the next.
The next one, I wish all amendments went this fast. 1907D, this is Oak Park. This is the Central Tampa Planning District, more specifically the East Side commercial neighborhood. Here we have the aerial. The subject site, of course, is outlined in red. East 14th Avenue is to the south. Further south is East Broadway Avenue. To the north is East Columbus Drive. And then you've got North 50th Street and Interstate 4 interchange over here. This neighborhood, there's some residential remaining. There's some single-family detached, mostly on the east side. And then there's duplexes to the south and some vacant lots all scattered throughout this area. Here we're looking northeast toward Oak Park from East 14th Avenue. Here we're looking west down East 14th Avenue. The subject site is located to the right or north side of the picture, over here. Here we're looking north up the 52nd Street right-of-way. It is unimproved. There is a ditch next to the site. The subject site is over here to the right, or the east. Here we're looking south into Oak Park from East 15th Avenue. This is the main access point for the park. It also has the rec facility on 15th. Here we're looking southeast into Oak Park from the intersection of North 52nd Street and East 15th Avenue. That unimproved portion is right over here that goes down to 14th. Here we have the adopted future land use map. You could see the subject site, and all this brown color is the residential 20. You've got East Columbus Drive, which now comes down through here. This pink is that community mixed use 35. To the south, the red is the community commercial 35. And then this kind of mauve color, I guess, is the transitional use 24. That's the category that allows residential, commercial, and industrial uses. So, like the others, this would go to that green representing the recreation open space future land use category. This amendment would remove consideration for 73 dwelling units, or a total of 79,932 square feet of non-residential uses, and all uses would need to be supportive of that rec open space category. So based on that, staff recommends that TACPA 1907D be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Okay, any public comment on this item? Any questions from commissioners? Someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Powell?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the proposed map amendment TACPA 1907D to be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 24 Tampa Comprehensive Plan.
A motion by Commissioner Powell, second by Commissioner Marino. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Next one.
All right, the final one for this round, 1907E. This is a portion of Sulphur Springs Park. It's in the University Planning District, and more specifically the Sulphur Springs neighborhood. Here we have an aerial. You could see here's this portion that's under consideration this evening. This is North Nebraska Avenue. Of course, this is the Hillsborough River immediately to the south. This is just a portion of the overall park. The park, you could see the pool, and the park is roughly here. There's some heavy commercial uses, the old dog track to the north. There's commercial uses on this section of North Nebraska Avenue. And then once you move east into the residential, it's a mixture of single-family detached and duplexes. And here we'll just look at some photos. We're looking east toward the intersection of North Nebraska Avenue and East Sitka Street. The subject site is on the right or south of the photo over here. Here we're looking southwest across Sulphur Springs Park. The subject site is out of frame to the left. This is the portion that's already rec open space, and the portion under consideration is over here, out of frame. Now we're out on North Nebraska Avenue. This is the actual portion that's under consideration this evening. This is North Nebraska Avenue looking north. And then basically I turned around, and this is the southern portion of that piece. And this, of course, where the trees is at is where the Hillsborough River meets the park. Again, here's the adopted future land use map. You can see the subject site has that community commercial 35 represented by the red. There's some on the other side of the south side of the Hillsborough River. Immediately to the east in the pink is that community mixed use 35. And then actually to the north, we have the urban mixed use 60 future land use category. And this is that portion of the park that's already the rec open space. Here it is now, the whole park will now be recreation open space. The maximum potential, currently the site could be considered for 25 units or a maximum of 64,468 square feet of non-residential uses. All that would go away under the rec open space. All future uses would need to be that rec, supportive of the rec open space category. And based on that, Planning Commission staff recommends that 1907E be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan.
Okay, any public comment? Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Marina?
This is more of a comment than a question, and I asked David, in the last meeting, kind of a convoluted question about what could be a use for this land if it moves to this, recreational open space category, because there's that sort of that commercial designation or potential future designation. So I want to mention it now because having seen companies that do, private swim lessons, and this is a pool, and could a company come in presumably and buy the pool and say, oh, well, it'll be open to the public for certain hours, and the rest of the hours are private. So it doesn't seem as if we're in any position to tell the city of Tampa how they should operate facilities or sell facilities. But I just wanted to note that because it is in the ordinance, in the city's ordinances, there is a commercial recreational facility. And I appreciate that the city is going through this process of making sure these properties are protected. I just think that maybe there's another step that they could go. It does seem as if you read the ordinance, that a nonprofit would be excluded. That a recreational commercial facility is a for-profit enterprise versus a nonprofit or not-for-profit. But I just wanted to, maybe for my own sake, tie up that loose end because the city's going through this process, and maybe I'm thinking of one scenario that may not occur, and ultimately it will come down to the city council to make that decision when there's zoning or sale or anything like that. But I just want to mention that because I had made maybe too much of a big deal out of that in our last meeting, but I just want to mention that.
I do want to also mention that after that meeting, we did talk to the city of Tampa. They were planning on addressing some of your questions tonight, but they're having their staff that was here had a flat tire, and that's why they're not here this evening. But the conversations I had, there are regulations on private entities using public, like a tennis coach. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to book their there's a system that they go through to book the facility, and if someone's not following that rule, it's more of an enforcement issue. I know the city, especially the city council right now, is very protective of the parks. They want to reopen some of the pools and everything too. So the current city council is very concerned about the preservation of parks, and that's what's kind of led into this. I was hoping the city could answer your question a little more detailed than I can, but we can follow up with you later too if we.
Well, and I appreciate you having the conversation with them, because that was the other example I had, was sort of the tennis complex question of someone comes in, builds a complex, and then they kind of have the authority over booking it versus, say, it being an asset to the community. But thank you for following up on that, because that gives me a little bit, I've got to support this anyway, but that gives me a little more assurance that the city council is serious about this protection.
Well, and this kind of ties into Commissioner Kress's question about why are we doing this all separately? Part of that discussion about the parks ended up being there's some parks in New Tampa that are public, but they were acquired through, planned developments, and there's some sort of relationship with the HOAs, so that's why we're not seeing any right now up in New Tampa, because they're clarifying that ownership, and can it really be rec open space if it's the underlying land is deeded throughout the HOA, and so there's these kind of questions that are going to have to be solved over the next few rounds. Thank you. Sure.
Okay. Any other questions? Someone like to make a motion? Commissioner
I
Kress?
can make a motion
Yep.
that we recommend that the proposed map amendment TA CPA 1907E be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Kress, second by Commissioner Moreno. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to Tampa Comprehensive Plan Amendment 19-08.
Good evening. My name is Danny Collins. I'm with your Planning Commission staff, and I'm presenting Tampa Plan Amendment 1908. The general location of the subject site is in the University Planning District, more specifically in the University of South Florida Research Park area. This is a privately initiated request through the USF Research Foundation and the state of Florida. This is a regular size scaled amendment, and it's approximately 84 acres. The request is to change the future land use from suburban mixed use 6 to public semi-public. This is an area of the subject site and the surrounding properties. To the north and to the east, you'll see the University of South Florida campus. This area to the south of the subject site is the Tampa Industrial Park, and then this area to the west of the subject site is the University Mall area. And this area west of Bruce B. Downs Boulevard is under the jurisdiction of unincorporated Hillsborough County. This is a close-up area of the subject site. You'll see East Fowler Avenue running east to west, and then you'll see Bruce B. Downs Boulevard running north to south. Here is an image looking south at the entrance of the property from East Fowler Avenue. This is an image looking north along Spectrum Boulevard. This is looking at an example of one of the existing buildings found along Spectrum Boulevard. This is looking at the entrance of the property from Bruce B. Downs Boulevard. This is looking at some undeveloped land on the subject site. This is another image of looking at some undeveloped land on the subject site. This is the existing adopted future land use map. To the north and east in this blue color is public semi-public. To the south is light industrial. This area right here, just south of Fowler, is heavy industrial. And then this portion west of Bruce B. Downs Boulevard is under the jurisdiction of unincorporated Hillsborough County. This area is characterized by light commercial, commercial office, and a range of mixed uses. This is the proposed future land use map. You'll see the public, semi-public highlighted in blue. The slide shows the maximum intensity and densities with the request. Currently, the site can be considered for 504 residential units, or just over 1.8 million square footage of non-residential uses. Overall, the proposed amendment would allow for greater flexibility in the intensity and types of uses allowed on the site. And it would also recognize public ownership of the land, specifically by the University of South Florida. This is our consistency review. We took a look and we reviewed the amendment with the comprehensive plan. We found that it supported a number of the policies under neighborhoods, mixed-use centers and corridors. It also supported many of the policies in economic development, in employment centers by encouraging job growth and sustaining a growing population. With that being said, Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed map amendment be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be here to answer those.
Okay, any public comment on this item? Oh, is the applicant? Please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Andrea Zellman with the law firm of Buchanan, Ingersoll Rooney, and I'm here tonight representing the applicant, the USF Research Foundation. I have with me Allison Madden, who's the Director of Research Foundation Operations, and also Hillary Black, who's the Associate General Counsel, and I understand a high school classmate of our chair.
Yep. Long time ago.
Yeah. Longer for me. So as Danny mentioned, we're seeking a change tonight to change the comp plan category on this property of over 80 acres from suburban mixed use 6 to public, semi-public. Again, the USF Research Foundation is what's called a direct support organization, and that's actually defined by Section 1004.22 of the Florida statutes. And it was formed for the purpose of providing broad and flexible mechanisms to support research operations, contracts, and grants, and to facilitate the commercialization of university inventions. And while the foundation is supported by USF, it is actually a separate legal entity from the university with a different mission. And likewise, the land that the foundation controls that's at issue here is being held for a purpose that's different from the land that comprises the campus of USF, because, for example, the research park can be used to support private enterprise. So the purpose of this plan amendment is to maximize opportunities in this area that are consistent with the mission of both the Research Foundation and that surrounding innovation district, which I'm sure you've all heard about, Mark Sharp's Innovation Partnership. And we're seeing that kind of development now at the old University Square Mall. And again, the mission of the foundation is to help develop high technology businesses and research partnerships that boost the economy and create high paying jobs in the Tampa Bay area. So changing this land from what is now a suburban mixed-use plan category to public, semi-public will allow the Research Foundation to be more nimble, to be more flexible, to be able to provide for the kind of development that is more consistent with, again, both its own mission and that of the Tampa Innovation Partnership. I would note the land is also the subject of an old 1990 DRI and an old PDA, Plan Development Alternative PD zoning that was approved in 1995, and the foundation does plan to rescind the DRI now that the statutes have been changed to make that somewhat obsolete, and also to amend the PDA to make it more consistent with their mission. If you look at the old PDA, it talks about uses like private residential treatment facilities and daycare centers and things that are not really consistent with the mission. As your staff noted in their staff report, this map amendment is consistent with numerous comp plan policies, goals, and objectives. The one that I thought was most notable was Objective 8.12, which calls for preserving and protecting the supply of land that's available for industrial research and development within this Tampa Green Technology Corridor, with the aim of increasing jobs in target industries. And that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish tonight. So we hope you'll agree with your staff report that this is consistent with the comp plan and that you'll recommend approval. And we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask if there's any public comment before I get to questions. Any public comment? No public comment. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Joseph?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to declare a conflict of interest. I don't believe I'm employed by the Research Foundation, but I am employed by the University of South Florida, so just to make everything clear, I will abstain from voting on this one, and I will get Mr. Robbins the paperwork for that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Powell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to propose that we approve the map amendment. I lost my place here. Whoops. What was it? Sorry. Here we go. Give me a second. I apologize. That TACPA 1908 be consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 and Tampa Comprehensive Plan and forward it on for approval.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Dix. Any further questions, discussion before we vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to our last item, Tampa Comprehensive Plan Amendment 19-09.
Good evening. I keep wanting to say council members, commissioners. David Hay again with your Planning Commission staff. The last amendment for your review this evening is TACPA 1909. A little background of the subject site is located in the South Tampa Planning District, more specifically the Port Tampa City neighborhood. It's way down here near MacDill Air Force Base. It is in the coastal high hazard area. Here we have an aerial. If you remember last month, we showed this aerial. This is the subject site here. You could see the single-family detached development now is located to the east and to the north. This wooded area is all under construction for single-family detached. A lot of this has been removed now. Again, this is MacDill Air Force Base directly to the south and some of their fueling facilities. Again, a little background. This is privately initiated, and I don't think the applicant's here. It is small scale. It's approximately 0.81 acres. It's one of the last remaining heavy industrial pieces down in Port Tampa City, in this section of Port Tampa City, and the applicant is seeking to go to that residential 10 future land use category. Here, here's some photos of the subject site. You could see the road has now been extended basically to the base. You could see some of the buildings associated with the base directly to the south, so the road dead ends into the base. This is the subject site here. You could see all that green that we saw in the aerial has already been removed to the west, and the street is under construction. Here, we're looking east towards Southwest Shore Boulevard. That's the street immediately located to the east of the subject site. This is the subject site behind these trees. This is the end of South Mescott Street. And the subject site, again, is over here. You could see the development is, the single-family detached is right up against its northern boundary. Here, we're looking up that residential street with all the new construction that's occurred down there. And then this is where all that greenery was, immediately to the west of the subject site. So again, here we have the adopted future land use map. You could see this is that street that they were just constructing in the photos. This is one of the last heavy industrial pieces. A lot of these down here that line the base are publicly owned. So you could see directly across the street, it's residential 10 as well, under that tan color. And then if this is approved, that whole block would now be residential 10. Again, under the heavy industrial future land use category, residential is not permitted, but it can be considered for 52,924 square feet of non-residential heavy industrial type uses currently. Under the Res 10, it would go, there would be some residential units would be allowed 8, a maximum of 8, and then a maximum of 12,349 square feet of non-residential if it met locational criteria, which in a preliminary review under a Res 10 it does not meet, but that would be reviewed at the rezoning stage. So if this is approved, the potential, As usual, we send these out to our partner agencies. None of the agencies raised a concern. There was a note from the Hillsborough County School Board. They did provide a comment that both West Shore Elementary and Robertson High School do not currently have adequate capacity for additional students. It should be noted that the school board comments are a capacity review, and this review is not a concurrency determination. A concurrency review will take place prior to the preliminary plat or site plan approval. Your Planning Commission staff reviewed the comprehensive plan and did find that the proposed request for the expansion of the residential 10 future land use category would be consistent with the adopted policy guidance within the comprehensive plan. There were 4 main areas of consistency. The comprehensive plan promotes infill development in appropriate areas, especially when the residential development is within close proximity to employment centers, especially like MacDill Air Force Base. There is also policy guidance about development being respectful to the overall neighborhood context. The remaining heavy industrial land use, if developed, would pose potential serious negative impacts to the residential development that has occurred in this portion of Port Tampa City. The residential 10 category is more supportive of providing for a development pattern in keeping with that neighborhood context in Port Tampa City. Another area of consistency is regarding policy language concerning the location of industrial uses and having an appropriate transportation network to serve such uses. If this parcel was developed under the heavy industrial, you would have large semis or industrial-sized trucks going down a residential road to service this use, and that would have, those roads down there are not very wide. So that would pose a negative impact to those residential uses to the north. And finally, though the proposed amendment would increase density in the coastal high hazard area, the proposed increase would be minimal, and additional mechanisms are in place at the rezoning stage so as to ensure that hurricane evacuation times and adequate shelter space is maintained. So based on that, your Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed map amendment be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The applicant isn't here, so is there any public comment? No public comment? Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Dix.
David, you addressed this. I just want to make sure I'm correct in understanding it. All of the area immediately west of this property is already under construction,
Yes.
and that's all residential.
Yeah, let me back up here, and yes, all this over here, remember we saw in the aerial, and I'll go back to the aerial, this was all green. It went through a plan amendment a few years back. It is now all residential 10. You could see, where's my mouse? It's all been subdivided. And now when you go back to the photos, click, see this is that, the subject site is right off here. This would be the road to serve the subject site. And this is all that's being developed on the west side of the street.
It just seems so odd to me. I mean, it's totally ancillary, but it just seems so odd to me that immediately across the street from a active military base encompassing Central Command, Southern Command, and Special Ops, some committee decided that residential would be great across the street.
Well,
nonetheless, this is the only property that was not, so it'd be kind of odd to keep it.
Well, and I will comment that MacDill Air Force Base has their accident potential zones. Those are on the east side of the base, goes over portions of Bayshore and MacDill. This is out of their active zone, so there's not a lot of aircraft. Even though the base is located directly to the south, a lot of it's just maintenance facilities and things like that. So they won't have the low-flying planes over there.
Gosh, you've made me sad.
Okay. Any other questions? No questions? Someone like to make a motion?
I move that we find the proposed land use designation change for the City of Tampa CPA 19-09 from heavy industrial to residential 10, consistent with the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan, and forward this recommendation to Tampa City Council.
Okay. Commissioner Willman made a motion, Commissioner Joseph seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That was the last item. Meeting's adjourned.